Okay, very good. Well, what we're going to do is this is our third masterclass. We have done two before and they have been very successful. The masterclasses are to teach people various aspects. We bring in experts on breadfruit and they talk about their area of excellence. So it's an intense period where you can learn from the experts. And today we have Marisol Villalobos, and she is from Puerto Rico, and she has an amazing breadfruit farm, which is organic, and amazing breadfruit products that she makes at her factory, which is on the same property as her farm. Her farm is filled with birds and animals and very, very healthy, well-pruned breadfruit trees. That's the most important thing. Her product is excellent. I use it often, and I think it is just a remarkable product. So she is going to be talking to Mike. It's going to be a side-by-side chat. He'll ask her some questions, and she will talk about her processes of making breadfruit, her challenges of marketing and exporting. And I am sure you will all learn a lot. You can see Marisol is featuring her breadfruit products, and I have one of them
I don't
here.
understand.
And the products are excellent, and I can't recommend them enough. This is the food for the future. Food grown on trees locally that help local economies to develop, to feed local people, and also to help the environment. So at this time, I will hand this over to Mike, my husband, and to Marisol, my dear friend. We've been with her from the very beginning, from the first day she thought of the idea, or almost thought of the idea. So thank you all, and thanks for joining us. I hope you learn a lot.
Okay, so thanks. This is the heart of the master class. So Mary and I co-founded Trees That Feed in 2008. Since then, we've given away almost 500,000 of trees, breadfruit trees in particular, but many fruit trees. We've donated equipment, we've held seminars, we've published school books, we've run school feeding programs in over 22 countries all around the world. But we started in our homeland, the Caribbean. So we think of food security as very important, especially for developing countries. I don't know whether to include Puerto Rico as a developing country, but we had the opportunity to visit Marisol and Jesus, her husband, and her factory and farm recently in Puerto Rico. We're most impressed. So, Marisol, thank you for hosting us. Marisol made a delicious lunch for us when we were there, all with breadfruit. So, and you and your husband are among the most successful entrepreneurs we know. So there's a lot of people on the line here just wanting to hear from you. Okay, thank you, Marisol. Okay, let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into business and entrepreneurship.
Before that, Mike, thank you so much, and Mary, for the opportunity. And as Mary said, I feel you've guided us since day one, really. And you didn't mention that, but I think part of the most important thing Trees That Feed Foundation is doing is cheering for all of us entrepreneurs that have decided to leap and to bring breadfruit products, to the shelf of so many places already. So I think that is so important, and thank you very much. So your question, how did we begin with all this? Jesus, my husband, and I are co-founders of Amasar, and we've always been drawn to connecting with people, and we have also been very connected with agriculture. We are both children of farmers of coffee in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico, it's not a developing country, Michael, but we import more than 90% of what we eat. So we do have an immense challenge of food security. And with breadfruit, it's part of our mission in Amasar, to close that gap a little bit with this amazing and generous fruit. So we have been enjoying breadfruit for so many years, more than 200 years already, but we didn't see it as a staple food because it was seasonal. It ripens very quickly. So both Jesus and I developed in different careers. He's a chemical engineer. I'm a microbiologist. He would work in pharma industry. But basically, we were brought and close into agriculture because of our roots in farming. We purchased the property you visited us at when we were newlyweds. We didn't even have a home, but we purchased part of our father-in-law's farm because we always knew deep down that we wanted to do something with farming. And we had a couple of other things we did. We did a little bit of coffee at some time. We also did a hydroponics of coriander, but that didn't work because of different aspects. But I say that breadfruit was literally tossed at us in different ways. And we were expats in Europe because of my husband's pharma job. And my godmother sent us a breadfruit all the way to Italy. And that was the first spark of attention. I remember saying, "Hey, there's no breadfruit in Europe. Why?" And then I began to learn that it ripened so quickly, and it's so difficult to put it on a ship, and it arrived greatly to a shelf at a supermarket. And then I met with Jahaira, my cousin, and Josue, her husband, and we began talking again about breadfruit. And I always say that breadfruit was really tossed at me, and even the name of Amasar was developed in Italy when we were expats over there, because we had in our mind that we would return to Puerto Rico and that we would develop a project with breadfruit as flowers.
Mary and I grew up in Jamaica, and I think Puerto Rico is similar in that there's a lot of breadfruit trees kind of everywhere. A lot of people have one in their backyard. And so I think it's kind of taken for granted. I don't think people realize how valuable breadfruit is. Would you agree with that? People took it for granted, but you had to persuade your
Totally.
that it was.
Totally. Even though in some difficult instances, like in the Great Depression, there's documents in Puerto Rico that evidence that families had their little piece of land behind their homes, and they would grow a little bit of everything, but they had a breadfruit tree. And in those years, it seems that breadfruit was also important in the survival of Puerto Ricans in those days. And we know histories like that all over the world in general. So I think I always say that we saw in breadfruit a low-hanging breadfruit, literally, because it was just there. And as you say, and even in Puerto Rico, we had a misconception because we would eat breadfruit only with bacalao, only with codfish. So I used to think until 12 years ago, basically, that breadfruit was family of like taro. That was it. I didn't understand it was a fruit because in Spanish, we don't call it breadfruit. In English, it might be more like literal that it's a fruit, but in Spanish, we call it pana. So we would never eat a ripened breadfruit ever. For us, a ripened breadfruit, a bland ripened breadfruit was was not in good conditions to eat. Now we know it's a fruit, and I do even do juices with it. I do smoothies when it's completely ripened. Because now I know it's a fruit and I can use it in that sense. So I think we really hadn't understood the potential breadfruit has. And I think that's something that Amasar in Puerto Rico has done pretty well. Now we're seeing breadfruit in the menus, people doing breadfruit in many different forms, because we've been saying, hey, we have to use more breadfruit because it's just so amazing of a product for food.
It's terrific. I think of breadfruit as two different things, or maybe more than two, because the fresh fruit is wonderful. So some countries, like in Jamaica, we roast it. But some places in the Pacific, they take the unripe fruit and they candy it or pickle it. Some other places, they take the overripe fruit. Some places ferment. And then what we're starting to do now, you and others, we're dehydrating the fruit, and then it becomes an ingredient for all kinds of wonderful things. Is there like one best way to have breadfruit?
Mike, the way that you like it most is my answer to that. Because, for example, I love it as we do it, and as I served you, it's like pickled, but salty pickled. And it's boiled, and then I put in the oil, the vinegar, the onions, the garlic, and the coriander, and it just tastes so good in that way. But as you say, as a flour, it just opens an enormous array of so many other ways we can eat breadfruit. And I think that has been key because it's just amazing. Now we used to have breadfruit in Puerto Rico only for lunch or sometimes for dinner, but basically more for lunch with codfish because we usually have rice and beans for dinner. But now you can have it for breakfast in pancakes and waffles. You can have it boiled with codfish for lunch. You can have it in tostones or in a flan, right? For as a dessert. You can have it in smoothies because we're just opening how many other possibilities. Breaded chicken. You can do chicken and waffles now. So it's just amazing now as flours how much more plates you can develop with the flour.
And that's one of the things. So Mary and I talked about this long ago, um, that you have breadfruit now with a long shelf life, now more versatile, not just, you pick it from the tree and you better eat it within 2 or 3 days. And so what you have done, you and your husband, you have taken breadfruit from the kitchen table to the supermarket. So talk about that. I think that's a big switch. You need a lot of expertise to go from, a nice recipe, you're cooking that on a Sunday for lunch, versus now you have products for retail.
Mm-hmm. Well, that we spent a lot of time in R&D because I first did like just the plain breadfruit flour, but then I saw that it was a little bit more strong of a taste, and then managing it was a little bit more difficult. Not as difficult as other flours like almond or coconut, if you may, but that's when we decided to do the blends because my mission was my first idea was I want to do the best pancake and waffle mix that is easy to use in the kitchen for an everyday mother like me that works so much, has 3 children, and wanted to do something that was pretty easy to make and use, but at the same time was super healthy and natural and no preservatives in it. So we did a lot of testing. Jesus, my husband, always says that, we spent like a year tasting pancakes and waffles and different mixes and blends until we came out with our blend. But the main ingredient is breadfruit because I think breadfruit is just the star. It just brings so much goodness to the mixture in taste, in fluffiness. When you compare with other blends that I've tasted based on other types of alternative flours, I really think that the ones made out of breadfruit are pretty much tastier. They're more tastier and they're more easy to use. It's basically you just toss in the rest of the ingredients, milk, an egg, the sweetener that you prefer, and the oil or butter, even better. And it just turns out very, very well. A great pancake and a great waffle.
One of the things, and I'm already convinced. So, so we have some samples here. You can't see it very clearly in the picture, but we do your waffles at home all the time. One of the things that fascinates me about it is that I think you said this already. You don't use preservatives. To me, that's kind of amazing. And so, is there some magic? Is it the breadfruit is that good, or is there a process that means you don't need to use preservatives?
I think it's a combination of both. I think the breadfruit intrinsically just brings so many great things to the table, literally speaking, in terms of how it binds on itself. And that's why they call it, I always say that's why the English called it breadfruit when they were in Tahiti. It smelled like breadfruit, like if they were baking bread. And it had the consistency of a type of bread. So I think it has to do with that. And also part of the process that we brought in, remember that to make the flours, we do a very slow dehydration process, lower temperatures, longer times, because all you want to do is just remove the water. You don't want to cook the breadfruit. You want to just remove the humidity of the fruit, which is 75% of a breadfruit is water. And you want to keep all that concentration of nutrients, of good carbs, of complex carbs like fiber in there intact, so that when you consume it, you have just the best flour in the world. That's how I see it. A breadfruit flour made in the proper way for me is one of the best flours in the world.
Have you looked at shelf life, like the products on the supermarket shelf? I'm assuming you have to put an expiration date or something, but um, do you know how long the shelf life would be of some of these packaged products?
Definitely, because we're in the food industry, you have to comply. We must put a shelf life. I usually put enjoy by. It doesn't mean it's not in good conditions after that. That is based on studies we are performing and are ongoing. For example, our products have a tested shelf life of 36 months. That's 3 years. That's
Wow.
why I understand that the flowers is just so amazing, because from a product that was highly perishable, we're turning it into such a strong and robust food product that basically competes with every other flowers in the market. And not only that, when you dehydrate the breadfruit before turning it into flour or blends, it can last for many, many years if if you if you really do the processing of dehydration in that way, in that proper way.
So I always joke, if we're not sure about the shelf life, Mary makes me pancakes for breakfast. And if my stomach doesn't hurt, then it's still good. So I'm just joking about that.
But
We know.
it's true, Michael. It's true, Mike, because we being in the food industry, I'm just learning so much right now. It's amazing, and it's sometimes like mind blowing, all the things that the food industry does that you might be or not be 100% aligned with it. But it's legal and it's what. That's why we are conducting tests each product. We do microbiological biological tests. We also do palate tests and organoleptic tests to see how the flour is performing. We do pancakes, so we have our stability experiments ongoing, and there's a lab that we use that they have many samples of our products, and each year we ask them, okay, let's conduct the next year sample. And I don't want to put a shelf life of a product of more than 3 years, because you want it to be consumed before that. It makes total sense. But I do want to be in peace of mind that if stored properly, the product just will last even more than that.
It's fantastic, fantastic to me. And so breadfruit is seasonal. So the farmers who are in the audience know that. So there's some months of the year that you have lots and lots of breadfruit on the tree, and then there's other months you have almost none. So one of the best things about the retail products and the dehydration and the long shelf life is that you could be enjoying breadfruit-based products all year round, not just during the peak season. So that to me is a big deal. But here's an even bigger question for you.
Yeah,
Um,
if
breadfruit,
I may question, Harvey here from Rada St. Andrew.
we have room for questions right at the end. So thanks a lot.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And then you can put some questions in the chat and we'll deal with those as well. So just we're just gonna try to keep going a little bit and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. So, but here's the big question. Breadfruit, we are told, is gluten-free, and I think you have tested that. And then your products, you've blended with different things, but is it still gluten-free when it goes to the supermarket shelf?
Yes, because we've been, since day one, we wanted to offer something to the market that was highly competitive and especially in quality standards. So we did our market research, Mike and Mary, and you know that we evaluated what other brands were out there that we wanted to be like, to emulate in a good sense, because we respect them very much. And we knew that with breadfruit, we had an extra player to bring to the alternative flour market. So breadfruit is 100% gluten free, and our facility does not use any other thing rather than breadfruit. But even there, you have to, if you want to put a certification, and that's something that we understood from day one we wanted to do, you have to comply because cross contamination occurs. And there's plenty of information evidencing this. So if I want to be 100% secure with all of our customers, and I wanted to put that logo in there of gluten free, I have to test every batch of breadfruit mixtures that we make on site. Even though nothing enters into our site that has whole wheat or any other grain that would have or carry gluten, we perform tests to our other raw materials so that we can certify that they are gluten-free. So we have to perform gluten-free testings for the batches we make, and we have an implemented protocol in our site where we have to test other things to assure that even though we don't purchase anything that has gluten, we're also assuring that nothing has cross-contaminated in another area of manufacturing sites with something that had gluten in it. So our products are, you can trust that they are 100% gluten-free.
You have pretty strict quality control, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that is a lot of reassurance to the customer. We do have a couple of questions coming in, and so we're
Just
gonna.
adding to that, Mike,
Yeah,
quickly,
go ahead.
we receive an auditor yearly, and we review all the protocols, and we have to evidence to them all the things we did to we have to validate all of our suppliers. They have to evidence that they also comply with part of what we have to comply. So it's pretty rigorous, but I think it's the right thing to do, especially with all the things happening with gluten. I think it's the right thing to do.
Excellent. One question that came in, which is relevant and is timely, because we talked about seasonality of breadfruit. The question is, are you able to produce your breadfruit products year round, or is your production seasonal?
Okay. Our production of the fruit, of breadfruit, is seasonal, but we dehydrate plenty of breadfruit in advance. We store it, and year round, we do the blends. And some people think it's difficult, but the season of coffee is even smaller than the season for breadfruit. And we drink coffee every morning, and that's worldwide. So if the coffee industry did it, we can also do it with breadfruit. It's just planned, and it's part of what we're doing in Amasar. We see how much we're projecting in sales each year. So we try to have in advance X amount of breadfruit, and that's what we process and have stored. And after that, we keep blending year round.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's kind of the advice we give to, folks that are not as advanced as you, folks in Haiti or Jamaica or some of the other places, Uganda, where we operate. We're encouraging them when the fruit is on the trees and it's abundant, that's when you can buy it at the lowest price. So you do all your buying and your processing to dehydration, part of the year where you have the most fruit. Then you can blend your products for the rest of the year. So what you're doing is kind of proof that that's really a good approach. Okay, so moving into like some of the marketing aspects, one of the things that we have been concerned about, and I'd like to hear your views, is how do we compete on price? Because certain other flours, certain other products are very, very cheap. They're produced in vast quantities, wheat flour, it's like very cheap in the supermarket. How do we compete? How do you compete with that type of product in the marketplace?
First of all, Mike, it's very important to stand out that breadfruit flour is a different type of flour in the sense that we are managing it differently. As you mentioned, wheat flour, they don't even use hand labor because the majority of the wheat is sprayed with glyphosate, with many other things that make it cheaper to work with a crop because it's very low intense in terms of labor, of hand labor, of man labor. So with breadfruit, everything has to be done, at least for now, by hand. And another good thing about it is that in these farms that we're developing, at least where we are, everything is also done by hand. So we do not use any pesticides or chemicals on it. So I have more employees that maybe other types of farms would have. So I'm trying to educate on that matter, that you can't compare it with wheat at all. So I think Amasar has also done a good job penetrating the market in the alternative segment of flours because it's not a grain. So I like to compare it with almond flour and with coconut flour. So people can automatically see that it's not this immense areas of land producing this mass form of another flour. It's a little bit more, it's more sustainable, right? But it's also more intense in terms of labor. And it's more natural because we're doing it, without any artificial things to it. So it's something that has a value to it. That's how I like to present it. I don't say that my flour is more expensive. I say it has more value to it now because of we're an emerging brand. We're coming to the market at a lower scale, so it's a little bit more artisanal. So it's more costing to the producers, and it's something that people understand. And if they know, they're willing to pay for that. I dream with a day where we can do it at a lower price, and more people can benefit of the immense benefits that this breadfruit flour has because of all the nutrition it has concentrated and packed in there. But for now, what we're trying to educate people is that you can't compare it with wheat flour or rice flour at all. You have to understand it's a different type of flour, a lot more nutritious, a lot more healthier.
I mean, I'm convinced. How do we get the word out, to the marketplace? I mean, you're very articulate, but we have to get that word out to the buyers. And by the way, the buyers, there's a lot in Puerto Rico, and there's a lot everywhere else. So you're in the US. So maybe talk a little bit about those different marketplaces. What are they looking for? A Puerto Rican buyer might be looking for something different than somebody in Florida or Georgia or wherever in the US.
I think that we're living in an interesting historical time because people are like awakening. We understand that we are what we eat. And we also know that we've been messing up with the food industry too much. And we're paying for that. And that's why we see so many chronic illnesses in our communities. So I'm sure it's all around the Caribbean because we have facts for that, especially islands that import so much. We rely on what is being sent with a lot of preservatives, with you don't even know how it's manufactured sometimes, but it's what we receive. So I think of it as a complementing market. It's doable. We're working with the Puerto Rican market, and every year we sell a little bit more. But don't you, even though we're Puerto Ricans and Puerto Ricans know breadfruit, we still have a challenge that we weren't used to it eating breadfruit in a breakfast dish like pancakes and waffles. And I have to educate them even a little bit about that. But they do know that breadfruit is a staple and that we have been using it for so many years, and that they feel so well when they ingest breadfruit, that I think that that's why it's gaining traction each year a little bit more. And that is very good because we have to use a little bit of less marketing in that sense. But for the US, which is a great complementary market, because when you do your market research, which every entrepreneur has to do, it's the U.S. market that really can bring a company like Amasar the economical benefits that we're looking for too, because our mission is we nourish you with breadfruit, but we also save the planet. But we have to make revenues because if not, we're out of business. And that is something very important that I call attention on all the people that are listening to our masterclass today. I everybody who knows me, I want to give so much to our community and to our people. But at the end of the day, I have to be economically sustainable, because if not, Amasar will disappear. So I think it's important that we've done that market research, and we're comparing with those prices of almond and flour and of coconut flour and of other flours that are even more expensive than our breadfruit flour. So I think that's very important. And the U.S. Population are looking for things like we have. It's just that they have to understand the value of the product. And that's where the marketing effort comes in, and the expense, because marketing is very expensive. We're learning each day how expensive it can be. And sometimes I say, well, I already did this program and and there's so many people, even in Puerto Rico, that still don't know about Amasar, because it's a challenge. And then in these days, there's another challenge that has to do that hyper focusing is difficult. So we're all over the place, all of us. So sometimes just a message comes out, but Are we retaining that message? So, you have to see the message a couple of times before it gets into your mind and into your heart and you understand it completely.
We totally understand that you have to make a profit. We want to see you successful. There's other entrepreneurs that we're helping in other countries. We want them to be successful. We don't want them to be dependent on outside help forevermore. So we want to help, Trees That Feed wants to help get people started and launched, and then they're profitable. So no argument there. And then as the growth happens, you talked about the price coming down. There's no question that one of the things that brings price down is large quantity. And so now is Amasar going to be able to scale up? Because I'm certain that that demand is going to grow. Can you grow with that? Do you have the supply of fruit and other raw materials that you can grow and build your, finance your own growth and be successful?
We're counting on that. We're planning on that. Most importantly, you have to plan for it because it doesn't come on its own. That's one thing. Another thing I think is very important, Mike and Mary, and I think the breadfruit industry has in its advantage, it's a newcomer. So if we do things properly, and I love the chat of Breadfruit Collective, sometimes I don't have time to write that much in it, but I think that if we stick together, like the breadfruit itself gives us the example, and you know that on the rind of the breadfruit, there are many hexagons and pentagons, and each hexagon and pentagon is a little flower. And one on itself does not make the entire breadfruit. It will be the collective of breadfruit that will bring up the breadfruit community as I envision it, as I dream for it. And I know you more than me, maybe. Mike and Mary dream of that as well. I think we have to stick together and we have to communicate a lot and we have to maintain prices. We have to share good advice because we have a competitive advantage. Breadfruit only grows in the tropics. And now I say it's our turn. I say it's our turn to bring to the world a beautiful product, a generous, nutritious food for the people that just does so many good things at a time, cooling down the planet, economical movement for other places, food security. In my case, in Puerto Rico, I dream of having food security for the island. So it's very important for us to stick together and to plan because what we're doing in Amasar is that we have our breadfruit farm and we have 12 acres of breadfruit that's already productive, a beautiful farm in a agroforestry model. But we also purchase farm for more than 30 farmers in the island. But we're not depending only on that. We worked with the Puerto Rican government and with agencies like Trees That Feed Foundation, entities like Trees That Feed Foundation, and a local nursery person that we have in Puerto Rico. And we are already giving away almost 15,000 breadfruit trees in Puerto Rico. But we were able to advise the government and to identify farmers that were really serious about growing breadfruit trees. I'm sure this happens in other countries. In Puerto Rico, sometimes there are these initiatives and they give out trees, but sometimes they don't even plant them. And they go to waste. Or they plant them in areas that are not going to be sustainable in the future, too near to a home, for example. So we're trying to be very, very mindful on the program of offering trees and incentivizing trees to farmers. But we're adding it up with two things: planification with these farmers and education for these farmers. So they know the best practices to plant the tree so that that tree actually makes it to the market eventually. So those are things that we're adding. We're also partnering with other small islands, with other islands in the Caribbean like us that already have breadfruit. And so we purchase breadfruit from Dominican Republic. We've also purchased breadfruit flour from Jamaica. So I think we have to stick together because it's not going to be only one company that's going to make it. It's going to be the community of breadfruit growers that will make it to success. That's how I see it.
I totally agree with that. And so that's one of the things that Trees That Feed believe. So when we help a lot of people to become entrepreneurs and to plant breadfruit and to understand the value of it, these folks are not competing with each other. They're adding credibility They're adding perspective. More people are becoming aware of breadfruit. So if we have two or three people in Haiti doing this and two or three people in Puerto Rico or Jamaica or wherever, it's not competing. The demand is potentially so great. We need all of these suppliers and they boost each other. We have time for a couple more questions before we go to the audience. We're going to go to the audience. So, folks, I know that you have some questions. Don't worry. We're going to get to those. Put them in the chat. We'll get to them. Don't worry. Now, one couple of quick things. Um, Marisol, you mentioned the government. Is the government helping you at all? Is there a role for the government in boosting breadfruit and entrepreneurs working in this space?
Well, actually, Mike, I think we've also done a very good job in Amasar to strengthen some initiatives that had begun in Puerto Rico. We have the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez, and we have one of the agronomists, which is a fruit specialist. He's been advocating for many years for breadfruit, but like nobody was paying that much attention to him. So when we got our products out to the market and when I presented to the Secretary of Agriculture for the first time, he said to me, your products have to pass the test of students. If students like it, we can talk more about breadfruit and incentivizing breadfruit as a formal crop for Puerto Rico. Crops in Puerto Rico are coffee, plantain, dairy products. That's mainly what we had. A little bit of the meat industry, but very low in fruit, very, very low in fruit. So, and bananas, we also have a good industry of bananas. So I understood what he meant. So I that's part of what we wanted to develop, a good blend that was very, very acceptable in the palate of a child. I say that if a child likes it, we have the market for sure, because children are very sincere in their appealings to for example, a pancake. They have already in their mind the taste of a pancake. So if they like Amasar's pancake, I say we have a very good thing there. So after I did that, we went back to the Secretary of Agriculture and we convinced him to propose a grant to USDA for a specialty crop with breadfruit. And that's where this grant for propagating 20,000 breadfruit trees in the island occurred. So we're very happy of having been part of that. So I understand, and many of you will have to do the same thing in your jurisdictions. We have to integrate ourselves with the government. We have to speak up for breadfruit. It's a task that we have to do. Nobody's going to do it for us. We have to do it ourselves. Now in Puerto Rico, they're seeing the importance of breadfruit and the potential it has. So that's why they're working with me a little bit more.
I think governments in the Caribbean, the ones that we've communicated with, quite a few, are aware of the need for food independence, the cost of imported foods. And very important is that when you're consuming locally produced foods, the money that you spend at the store to buy your breadfruit waffle mix, that's staying in your country instead of going off to the US or Canada or Europe. And so even if it's a little more expensive, it's actually better to buy locally produced foods. We talk about that as an economic benefit very much for breadfruit. But just changing gears a little bit, all this talk about breadfruit and pancakes, you're starting to make me hungry. You want to talk a little bit about the different products that you have on the marketplace and the different Puerto Rican recipes. Other countries might learn some different ways to prepare breadfruit. It's up to you what products you think are the best. Mary likes your chicken, breadfruit crusted chicken. So she says that's her favorite. My favorite is a pancake waffle mix, but maybe there's a lot of others.
Well, I love the waffles, but I have to say that the best breaded chicken is made out of this flour. It's just amazing, and it's just so easy to use. It's super light. And again, I think with breadfruit, the sky is the limit. There's just so many things. I keep like thinking about, and ideas occur on what we could do with the breadfruit on its own, with the breadfruit as a flour, with the breadfruit completely ripened. As I mentioned, I'm doing juice with breadfruit. It tastes like soursop juice. For me, it's almost the same.
Yeah.
And I even do icicles with the breadfruit juice. So again, the sky's the limit, but I really, really enjoy the all-purpose flour because it's like more, it's a softer taste. It has a little bit of white rice in it, a little bit of cassava flour, baking soda, baking powder. That's it. And I just seasoned the chicken with my dad's recipe: cumin, sea salt, pepper, and a little bit of fresh oregano. And after I season it, I just toss in the flour, I mix it up and deep fry it, and it is amazing. And I even do meal preps. That's another nice thing about the products that we're developing. I do frozen pancakes, I do frozen waffles, I do the frozen chicken. And since we work so much, I know that you understand that we work so much as farmers. Sometimes I'm so tired, so when I get home, I just air fry it, and it's like almost if I had done it freshly made. So it's another nice thing about the breadfruit products, how they taste after frozen activities. That's another nice twist to it too.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna have to have a bigger lunch than usual today. So maybe my last question, and this is a big question because a lot of people are on the line here listening to every word you say, and you're so experienced and so successful. What advice would you give to someone that wants to become an entrepreneur? They want to get into this business, producing good, nutritious food for sale locally or for export. Do you have a few tips that you would give to somebody that wants to be an entrepreneur, be successful, be profitable?
For sure, for sure. And I love to share things because I always think that I don't want other people to slip on the banana peel that I already slipped over. So if I can share some things important for me as a first thing, we love breadfruit, and there's so many things to do with breadfruit. So I tell people, walk through the shelves in a supermarket and see what you can do similar to something that's there with our breadfruit. And you have to fall in love with the problem, not necessarily with your product. So that means that you have to listen to the customer. You have to listen to what they have to say. And I want to put my example. I don't know if you remember, Mike and Mary, the first product we brought to market was this size, but it wasn't this bag. And it wasn't in English. It was a Spanish word. In Puerto Rico, we call breadfruit pana. And pancake and pana cake for me was like the ultimate idea. And I wrote pancakes and baking mix. And I thought I had the most unique and understandable product in the world. And people didn't understand it because they thought it was a typo. They thought I had written pancake with an extra A, writing pana. And they didn't understand that. And then a pancake and then a baking mix. What is this about? Or I do pancakes or I bake. They didn't connect the two things. People that work a lot in the food industry or in the, when we're baking, we know that you can do a cake with a pancake mix and vice versa. With a baking mix, you can do a pancake. But people that aren't that immersed in the kitchen didn't understand it. So I think that before the year, I was already changing the name because I listened to my customers. They also were saying that the package was too big. Remember that families are decreasing each year. We have smaller families, a lot of people living as a two-member household. So the package they understood was too big too. So what we decided to do was bring to the market the all-purpose flour and a pancake and waffle mix, which was smaller. So this is the example I give to people, that you have to listen to the customer. You have to see what they want and what they're looking for. Because, for example, at first, the recipe that I put in the back was so nutritious. It had no sugar in it even. And then my nutritionist said, can I give you a piece of advice? And I said, yes, for sure. And she said, a pancake, you're expecting it to be sweet, don't you? Aren't you going to put a little bit of syrup in there, even though it's maple? So why don't you put just a little bit of brown sugar in the recipe so that when a person tastes it, it's more appealing? And I followed her advice and I changed the packaging again. So it's you have to be very assertive. Sometimes entrepreneurs are like tied to what their idea, they don't want to change, they want to stick to what they have. You really I see it that I'm serving a community. And if I want to serve a community, I have to assess from the community. So but those two things, that listen to the customer and don't rush to scale, would be my second thought. Grow step by step. Begin to work in the stores you have close to you. Do that market assessment, do your demos, listen to the people. For me, the Puerto Rican market has been amazing. I am so grateful to my people in Puerto Rico, because the mistakes I committed in Puerto Rico, I am not committing in the US. I learned from the community in Puerto Rico a lot, immensely. And now we have a more robust product to bring to the United States, which is I would say, a more, uh, uh, they would request a little bit more. They would ask for a little bit more. They have higher requirements. So I think that's very important.
Fantastic. Okay, some questions are coming in, and I'm going to pass them along. I might paraphrase them a little bit, but and then at the end, if we have some time, we'll have questions by voice, depending on how much time we have left. But one person says, and this relates to the health benefits of breadfruit. One person says that they don't consume breadfruit as often as they would like because it lowers their sugar and blood pressure. To me, that's a little bit of a unique problem because most people would want to lower their sugar and lower their blood pressure. Have you had any feedback or done any testing on the health benefits of breadfruit?
Well, we have done a lot of research, Mike and Mary, on the health benefits of breadfruit, because breadfruit has so much fiber in it. It's very good for your heart, and it's also very good for your gut and for your intestines. We are living in places, I think, as also in the US, where we have chronic issues of high blood pressure and diabetes. So, with all this good nutrition that breadfruit has to it, that's an asset, because we can help, mitigate a little bit these issues with the content of fiber, and also help people feel satiated with a product like breadfruit, because it has the complete groups of foods that we need. Breadfruit has the carbs, but it has the like starchy carbs, but it also has the complex carbs that are high fiber. That's why it's high fiber, and that's so good, and that helps us feel satiated. So you eat a little bit less, and you don't get the sugar spikes in your bloodstream. But then breadfruit has the entire gamma of amino acids that we need. It has the 20 amino acids, including the 9 essentials. And that's very difficult. I have a master's in biochemistry, and it's difficult to find food that has all the 9 essentials that you have in there. So basically, even though it's not that higher of a content in protein, like a piece of steak or chicken, but you have the ones that you need. So that's another good thing. And it also has a lot of minerals like potassium, that also helps with the pump of sodium and potassium in our circulatory system, that it's so important. And we're like miss consuming, it's not leveraged. We're eating a lot more sodium than potassium. So breadfruit brings up that a little bit. So it's a little bit more homogenized. So I hadn't heard of people telling me that it lowered their blood pressure in a way that it was bad for their health. It might be that we're talking about people that they're in other jurisdictions and places that don't have these problems. And as I say to my children, everything in excess can be questionable. We need a balanced diet. So not only eating breadfruit, we have to eat other things as well to complement on that. That would be my saying.
Excellent, excellent. Yes, no question. Um, one more question that came through on the chat related to a comment you made about agroforestry. And we don't have a lot of time, but any advice you would give on agroforestry, care of the trees? Do you do pruning of the trees, for example? Anything like that? Because one of the things that you're doing well, right, is that your factory is quite near to where you have the trees. And
Yeah.
so that saves on transportation, for example. But anything you'd add about agroforestry?
Um, for me, agroforestry is the best model, and we should. I've learned that what you might lose in a sense because of not having a monoculture, you gain in another sense. For example, our breadfruits grow very, very big for where we're at. We're at a very high altitude. I remember speaking with Mary, and she was like kind of surprised at the beginning. Really, you're growing breadfruits? We're at 2,300 feet high. And our trees are very productive, and it's a young farm. It still is a young farm. We're at year 5 of having planted the trees, and we already got a very good harvest this year. We also are blessed with having a lot of rainfall water, natural rainfall water, so we don't have to water our trees. But the agroforestry model, having other trees in there brings just amazing benefits. We don't have to use any pesticides. We don't have any plagues, in our crop. I say yet. I sometimes say nature finds its way and sometimes it takes time, but the best benefit, and this is documented, there's so much research done about this, that what you don't gain in quantity, you gain in volume of the fruit itself, bigger fruits, more fruits that we say in Spanish cuajan, that really make it to the end of the process, that they don't fall down before. And I think it has to do because we have coffee trees, we have cocoa trees, we have plantains, we have bananas. But on top of that, we have other indigenous trees in the farm that are like I don't know how you would say those specific species in English, but we have oak trees that are from the Caribbean, Arboles de Roble. We have also guavas, which fixate nitrogen. But then they are just the bio space for so many insects and good birds that just brings such biodiversity that everything is in balance and control right now in our farm. We have had visits from NRCS. That's their part of the USDA program. They have to do with conservation of soils and resources. And they were very, very impressed on how quick, after establishing the agroforestry model on our farm, they began to see that topsoil increasing and the biodiversity in the soil and the surroundings increasing. And our breadfruit are so healthy. We don't have any plagues, any fungus, any viruses, any insects. So we're very happy about that. And I think it's something that naturally happens in agroforestry. Sorry, I'm in a place that some people are walking around. So
Sorry, yes, it's coming through very clear. No problem at all. That's very interesting. I hadn't really heard about that aspect of agroforestry. The trees are healthier. You may not have as many trees per acre, but each tree is healthier and is producing more fruit and bigger fruit. And that's really something new. Okay, we're getting closer to the end now. Those are some of the main questions that came through. One of the questions that has come through several times is how to get a hold of the recording of this session, because a few people couldn't make it. We're going to record this. Natasha Norris, who is our manager of communications and programs, she orchestrated pulling all this together. So thank you, Natasha. Just want to make sure that we save the chat and then save the recording, and then we can put this on our website, treesthatfeed.org. And we'll put that on the website within about a day. Natasha generally works pretty fast, so we'll get that out quickly for anybody.
Mike, can I add something quickly?
Please.
Yes. This agroforestry topic for me is very, very important. I have witnessed the change in how coffee was planted in Puerto Rico because of the new ideas that it had to be a monoculture and that they would put these pieces of saran on the soil, and the coffee would fall, and then it would be easier to collect the coffee grains. And what they did was they literally put the entire plots of coffee at straight sun, no trees at all, no shading at all. Coffee in Puerto Rico used to be one of the best and high quality coffees in the world. There's historical documents that said even the Pope and the King of Spain developed a great affection for Puerto Rican coffee because we used to grow it at high altitudes with this shading implemented as an agroforestry model. And that was taken away like basically 50, 60 years ago. And in Puerto Rico, coffee planters began to plant the coffee without any shade at all. They retired completely the agroforestry model. And we had immense problems with plagues, with broca, with el minador de la hoja, different, and now and then it would give more grains, but they were very tiny and they had no water in it. So now they are going back to planting coffee in shade again. So I learned from that, and that's why I'm motivating all the farmers that we're working with in Puerto Rico to stick to the agroforestry model. I'm sure that in the long run, we're going to have so much more benefits.
You're so smart. Okay, we have, I think, about 5 minutes left. Natasha's going to keep us on track if we go too long. If there's anybody in the audience right now that has a question, hold up your hand and we'll get you recognized. And then if you have a question, try to keep it brief so that we can get a few questions in just at the end of the show here. We'll pause for a minute or two, and Natasha, you can give us a little bit of help. One of the questions that hasn't come through, that came through on chat, is how does the nutrition value compare fresh fruit versus when it's processed? Is it the same? Is it better? Is it worse?
I love that question. Because again, we want to like to raise the bar and the standard. So we sent our breadfruit flour, which is a composite of all the breadfruit farmers that bring us breadfruit. We did a mixture of all the breadfruit that we had received from Puerto Rico, and we sent it to analyze in Chicago, in a lab in Chicago, because we wanted to understand how much minerals it had kept, how much fiber it had kept after the dehydration process that we had submitted the breadfruit to. And it amazed me. It amazed me how much fiber. It's, for me, one of the key aspects of breadfruit is the fiber. And then that it maintained the entire gamma of the amino acids, the 20 and the 9 essentials. They were present there, that it maintained vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, the minerals like potassium, like magnesium, like calcium. So for me, the key is the processing, in terms that, remember, you don't want to cook the breadfruit. You just want to remove the water and maintain all that nutritional density in the flour. But I don't think you can ever compare it with eating the breadfruit just picked from the tree like we did on that Sunday, Mike and Mary, because it's food directly from the farm to the table. In the processing that we're doing in Amasar, we're trying to keep that processing as low as we can. So it's just basically a dehydration. We don't do anything else to the fruit. So I think that has its value to it. But eating breadfruit freshly is just, for me, the best thing. If we're blessed having breadfruit in our regions in the Caribbean, and we have to use it more. So when I have a fresh breadfruit, there's no rice and beans, there's no anything, it's just breadfruit.
We are not trying to stop you cooking breadfruit fresh. We're not.
The good thing is that now, with the processing that we're making, we're guaranteeing a nutritious and good meal for so many other people.
We are. Okay, a question has come up 2 or 3 times in the chat asking about equipment, how to set up a factory. And some of this I'm going to answer on behalf of Trees That Feed. And Marisol is happy to help as well, I am sure. But one of the things we would like to see is more people becoming entrepreneurs, setting up businesses, producing breadfruit products. I think it's a good way to boost the economy. I think it can be successful. I think the demand is going to be great. And Trees That Feed wants to encourage that. So we have a lot of information on our website. And we also help people on a one-on-one level, by telephone or WhatsApp or email. And so reach out to us. What I would say is if you're thinking about that, do quite a bit of research so that you can ask the best questions. So one question that comes out is, help me to set up a business. Well, we want to help, but you got to start. And so you need a business plan. Where you're going to locate, what country, what's your marketplace. Like, you should have listened to Marisol, because she said, listen to your customers. Who are your customers going to be? Put together a business plan, know what capacity you're going to target. Is it, a ton per year, 10 tons, 100 tons? And so then we can definitely try to help with equipment and other advice.
100% with you, Mike. This is not easy. You have to have a lot of passion. But I like the P's, passion, but then it's planification. You have to plan. You have to educate yourself. We've been very auto learners. We've read many, many things. I think it's so important that you assess your market and understand what type of products you would like to bring to the market, and and test it a little bit. For example, they told me to do tostones, which is the fried plantains, with the fried breadfruit when you mash it and you fry again. And I did my assessment in that market, and I didn't want to get into the frying business, dealing with the oils and with all that. And then I had to freeze a product. It's not that they're not frozen products that could be very, very key players in the market and very successful. It's just, I personally, it didn't make a match with me, but maybe it does make a match with other people, So I know people in the tostones industry. So, and it's a good seller, but then you have to have in place other important things, especially the freezing process and maintaining it. Frozen is another hassle. It's another very important thing that you have to consider. But you have to prepare yourself and you have to plan. You have to do your business plan. If not, this will not work.
Good advice. Okay, we're at the end of our time slot, if not a little bit over. We have to be respectful of people's time. I know that some folks are going to have already left us, actually. I want to come out and say, Marisol, thank you so much. You have been generous with your time, generous with sharing knowledge and information. We've had several comments in the chat thanking you, congratulating you for the work that you have done and your willingness to share. I want to thank Mary for starting this whole project from back in 2007 or 2008. Natasha helped us to pull all this together. We want to thank our audience who are showing that they're very, very interested in this topic. So I know that we're doing the right thing. Share with us, if you haven't already, your email. Also, look at our website. We'll share the recording or links to the recording. Any questions that we haven't had a chance to answer, we can get back to you with this later on. Okay?
Can I jump in?
Sure.
We have a few people, and I think we can go over time if people are willing to stay. I always break the rules, but I'd like to do that. And there are a couple of people who've had their hand up, and I want to respect that they've had their hand up for a while. So if we could
Go
ask
ahead.
them to talk.
Hi,
I'm
should
okay.
I
I have like an extra 10 minutes, so it's okay.
hi, should I interject since
Yes,
you
go
told me
ahead.
thank you. Just a quick question. It's separate from, I guess, direct product development. It's more on the designing of the agro-processing facility side of things. Earlier in your I guess discussion or presentation, you mentioned how you sort of grew over time and you did not scale at a rapid pace. I'm in a situation where I have access to a warehouse and I'm sort of starting from scratch, but I want to build a space or design the layout that is US FDA is certified, and it is appropriate for the direction that the company wants to go as it relates to breadfruit processing. So I'm not sure if you or the agency can make recommendations as to companies that does the designing for layouts for an agro-processing space, given that breadfruit is something not many persons may be aware about.
I
Where
don't.
are you
Go ahead, Marisol.
where are you based?
In St. Lucia.
In Santa Lucia. In my experience, the university has a couple of programs. Reach out to your universities. In Puerto Rico, some of the universities we have helped us with the layouts. My recommendation is that small can be clean, can be compliant. You don't have to begin again so big. And for me, it's more recommended, to do it in that way. For example, we began in a space 30 by 30, and we had offices and everything in there. Okay. So, and after that, we constructed a new facility from scratch, but we had gained all the knowledge on the do's and the don'ts. So I think that's very important. Sometimes institutions could help you a little bit, but at the end of the day, remember that with breadfruit, we're working a little thing that something that's maybe a little bit innovation in the market. And there are things that you might not get the best recommendations at the beginning, and you would have to figure them out on yourself. So I would reach out to these institutions like universities that might have programs in the engineering departments that can help you a little bit. I don't know if the government in St. Lucia has also something that could help in terms of value added processes for agricultural products, but those would be my recommendations as a beginning.
I tried what you actually recommended. Unfortunately, similar to what you expressed, there may be challenges. They're unaware. Since what I intend to produce, it's a bit more. It's unique in the solution context. I'm not sure. I guess the Trees That Feed Foundation can touch base with me after if they get any information to allow other persons to ask questions.
Peter, you can WhatsApp us. You go
Okay,
on our
awesome.
website, our number is there, and we have groups that we can put you in, and we can help as much as we can, because we
Awesome.
know, as Marisol says, she has stepped on the banana peel. We want to stop anybody else from stepping on those banana peels.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time?
Um,
If not, I'll hand over to Mike.
yeah, afternoon. Harvey here from rather St. Andrews, Jamaica. My concern is in relation to the overripe breadfruit. These, in from our perspective, we normally use overripe breadfruit to do like the breadfruit punch. But we're looking at the liqueurs. We're looking also at the for exporting the breadfruit that can be roasted. And we're looking at the shelf life. I don't think enough research is being done in relation to the shelf life of the breadfruit from roasting to exporting based upon the location that it is going. I think that is something that we could also look at in relation to manipulating the different aspect of the markets that are actually available. So I'm just throwing this out to say that these are some avenues that we can actually look at in relation to market dynamics and the market in relation to availabilities.
Absolutely, Mr. Harvey. Roasted breadfruit, it's vacuum sealed and frozen. There's a huge market for it. Scientific research in Jamaica, I know they would be the best people for this, but I think that has huge potential. Me as a Jamaican, I would pay any price to get good roasted frozen breadfruit, and I could just open the pack and eat, because I have tasted it and I know Mrs. Tucker, she is on this. I see her here. She joined us. She makes a wonderful product, and she actually sells it at the airports in Kingston. So and in Montego Bay, when you're leaving Jamaica, you can pick up your frozen roasted breadfruit, and it stays in my freezer for 2 years, and I open it and it's as good as new. So yes, I agree. Any other questions? Because we want to be mindful of time.
Yeah, hello. My name is Joaquin Bryan I'm from a small island in the Caribbean, from San Andres Island. We produces a lot of breadfruit here in this island, but it is waste a lot because we do not have um, businesses here. They're just a guy that do chips and that's it. But I'm very interested in explore this business because there are a lot of breadfruit that is waste here when it's time. I mean, when it's breadfruit time, this is crazy. So I would like to have like what I would say to know which equipment is available to do the different process in the different presentations of the breadfruit. I would like to get in the business.
And we're happy to help. We're very familiar with your islands. Your islands are governed by Colombia. You're off the coast of Costa Rica.
Yes,
Is this correct?
yes, it's correct.
Yes.
It's Colombian.
And we're in a group chat with you, and I will jump in, and I think you're in that group chat. If not,
Yes, I am.
WhatsApp me, and I will make sure you're in that chat, and we can help you with that because there's a lot of diaspora who want to help to make this happen on your two islands, and we would be happy to help. So let's connect on that group chat.
Perfect. I will send you my WhatsApp. Then I will really glad to receive a message from you. Then you will include me in your chat. Then I will just continue there.
Absolutely. I want to hand over to my husband now. I've broken the rules. I don't like to break the rules, so I want to ask him to close for now.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, with that, we'll thank everyone for participating. Thank you, Marisol, for staying on a little bit longer. And everyone, check our website, and we'll be in contact with everyone after this closes. Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Keep up the good
Bye-bye.
work. Bye-bye.
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 Yeah.